This is the Persuasion Game, the Forges podcast all about the art of persuasion. Each episode, we connect with marketers, business leaders and beyond to learn how they use persuasion to influence their customers, convince their stakeholders and drive their businesses forward. So happy December, Laura.
Happy December to you.
Yeah, I'm very excited about today. We are going to be doing a Christmas special.
Something rather different, yes.
Something rather different. So what we've decided to do today is we're going to take what we believe are the biggest Christmas conundrums that people might be thinking about and try and answer them through what we've learned from our guests over the last 6 episodes.
Yes, because if there's ever a time when the art of persuasion is more important than ever, it's when you're a little bit drunk on Christmas Day and there's a lot of vested interest in a particular outcome that maybe you don't agree with. Exactly.
And when we were planning this episode, actually there are some incredible parallels between Christmas and marketing. So yes. I think actually this completely holds up as a worthwhile exercise.
We're going to see if we can strategize our way to the optimal Christmas experience.
Absolutely.
Never let it be said that the strategist doesn't give useful information.
Yeah, exactly. So the strategist Santas, let's be called.
Excellent.
So we've sourced questions from a range of different places. Mm-hmm. Some of the questions have come from clients that we've asked. Others have come from Nappy Valley.
Yeah.
Which you're a proud
lurker
on.
Yeah.
For those that don't know what Nappy Valley is, it's the southwest London equivalent of Mumsnet, is it?
Yeah, like problems, but posh and not really that important.
Okay, so I think we should just get into it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ready. Okay. This is a really good one because I relate very hard to this for some of my family members, which is I'm really struggling with Christmas present ideas for my partner. Whenever I ask them what they want, they say, oh, I don't really need anything or, just some time together or whatever, but I really want to get something special. Okay,
so what did we learn? I think that a really relevant bit of advice for this one is from our last episode, our episode with Jane Buck. And Jane is a phenomenal innovator, has a great sense of what people want and able to bring those things to market. So who better to kind of ask for advice about how to make the perfect gift? Should we have a listen to what Jane has to say about this?
Actually, at the end of the day, it really comes back to a few basics, which is people's behaviour. So I've always been consumer-centric and brands. I just love brands. Bottom line, all the different parts of my career are essentially rooted in people, observations, behaviours and brands and how they behave, what makes them tick, what makes them grow. It's always back to the roots of working with how consumers interact with the stuff we sell.
So the interesting thing about this kind of listening deeply is I think this is something that's really taken off with advertising this year. So obviously we've got the John Lewis ad, which is all about really searching for the perfect gift, the two sisters, and there's really a lot of reflection from her thinking, what could it be? What could it be? Like really kind of going down memory lane as she tries to identify the perfect gift. And I think also we see it in Etsy, who's always done a really sort of nice niche in terms of personalised, thoughtful gifts. They've got a radio ad at the moment, which is saying, really listen deeply to what people are asking for or what they've complimented you on, and then you can get a better gift. It kind of taps into the trend that we've been seeing a lot across this year as well, which is about how people are trying to enhance connections with others. It's not always about spending more money. It's about getting a deeper connection. It's about demonstrating personalization, thought and care, perhaps because of the straitened times we're in, but also people prioritizing connections even more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's right. I've seen it this year on we're using Gifster as a family to help each other, choose the right gift so no one gets something that they don't want. And actually, what's really interesting is it's full of experiences, like lots of all through the generations. Everyone's now asking they want to do things with each other, and I think that's really nice.
Oh, that's lovely. Okay, second question. Relatedly, what makes for a memorable present? I'm doing Christmas on a budget this year, but I still want it to be high impact as possible.
Okay, well, this immediately makes me think of Paul.
Mm-hmm.
So, for those of you that were with us at the beginning of the series, Paul from Suntory is a global insight director there, and he came and talked to us all about premiumization. And actually what's really interesting about what Paul had to say is, lots of liquids, when you get down to it, are the same. A 40% clear liquid in a bottle that, delivers alcohol to you in some kind of way. So actually one of the most interesting things I think that Paul said was, when comparing different spirits, to comparing different alcoholic drinks, people really care about the stories. They really care about where the drink came from, its provenance, that interesting story about that distillery that's been there for 400 years, that thing that you can tell your friends when you're sipping the whiskey and sharing it around. And actually, it triggered a memory for me about a gift that I saw given in my family a few years ago. So my sister-in-law and my brother, they were saving for a house. The reason I said started with my sister-in-law is because this gift, as you'll hear in a second, came mainly from her, not my brother. And one of the things they did for my mum and her mum was they created a memory jar. And they hand wrote 52 memories, one for each week of the year, of things that they'd shared, memories they'd shared, like that thing that happened on the ski holiday or whatever it might be. And it was beautifully wrapped, handed over. And it was just stories, one a week for an entire year that my mum could read and reread and enjoy. And actually, when we brought this up the other day about this kind of memory jar that was gifted, my mum said, actually, you know what, I'm going to start it again this year, just open the same jar because the memories are still there. And so I think there's something really nice about thinking about Christmas through the idea of stories and storytelling. And that's a great way to connect with people.
I love the other element he talked about, which is kind of bringing a bit of theatre to everything. Often it's about the whole experience of the gift under the tree and, what it's kind of evoking as much as the actual item itself. So, wrapping it up in some kind of theme like brown paper with big luscious ribbon, or I always try and put candy canes in all of mine because I think it just looks really good. But just kind of creating a bit of theatre around that whole experience, so you really show that you're thinking of every aspect of the gift is so much more important than how much you actually spent on it.
Let's just have a quick listen to Paul talking about premiumisation.
I mean, a really good example of it done very simply was Gordon's Pink. Sadly, wasn't my innovation when I was at Diageo. I was Tanqueray Sevilla, the second biggest. It was a category that had kind of lost its vavavoom in many ways. Lots of people like pink. You've only got to see the recent success of Barbie as a film, great film as well. Simply by creating a beautiful pink drink that you could make at home, pink gin, tonic, slice of something in a beautiful rounded glass, that's Instagrammable. Glassware is another absolutely fantastic way that we can do it. Beer does it better than spirits, but it can also be done through spirits. If you want people to take photos of you, make it beautiful.
Okay, now we've got a real humdinger of a question. I sourced this from Nappy Valley and I laughed quite a lot for quite a while. So I'm going to put it to the expertise of our wonderful guests. My girlfriend and I live together and our relationship is serious. I fully expect we'll get married. We're both professionals with good careers. I saw a thread about spending Christmas apart from family, and while that's not quite my issue, I have a related dilemma around family traditions during the holidays. My mum received a call from my grandmother last week. My grandparents host Boxing Day every year, and my mother asked if my girlfriend would be okay with the usual traditions. She framed it in a way that was a bit loaded, saying something about how my girlfriend is known to be strong-willed, and wondering if she might cause a scene. The tradition in question, now, citation needed if this is a tradition, is that the women in the family prepare lunch and then afterwards tidy and wash up while the men go for a walk, stop by the local pub for a drink, and then come back to play party games. This has never been an issue before because the women in my family are mostly older and stay-at-home mums. However, my girlfriend feels very strongly about not participating in the tradition and said she'd much rather join the walk and skip the gender division of labour altogether.
It sounds like a joke account, doesn't it? Is it a troll account?
I hope it is. For this girl's sake. I really hope it is. But leaving aside gender politics, age divides, and all those classic Christmas traditions that we know so well, I think essentially what we're looking at here is a way of trying to break a category norm, right? We've got a real challenger brand coming in saying there's a different way to do things. And they have received a very warm welcome from the category head, establishing that the rules of the category are not to be broken. So it's a tricky one, right?
this makes me think of the Grant interview, which I think was our third in our series. I feel like this is about taking the little wins each year and kind of building on them, demonstrating how a different way of doing things can actually also work, letting people see the wins and then taking them on the journey. And that's exactly what Grant did when he was at Asahi, where for 7 years he was convincing his business to take advantage of the non-alcoholic opportunity which he spotted when he was working in Spain. One of the key things he said was about giving and taking. So one of the things he had to do was to cut his marketing budget in one place in order to fund this in another. And I guess it's just showing to the team that actually I'm willing to kind of make a sacrifice to make this happen.
But you still need that bit of, trust me, believe me, it will work. And that was the hard part, because the group that I worked for, at the corporate level, didn't believe in any of this. So it was quite tough. But and this is where you need luck. You need luck that your boss or your management team gives you the benefit of the doubt. And that's very subjective. Not everybody has that, and you don't have it in every job. But they let it run, and by the middle of year 2, they could say, okay, this is definitely not terrible. We're not sure it's brilliant, but it's definitely not. And by year 3, yeah, this is a good idea. And by year 4, everyone said, I told you it would work. I knew all along.
Okay, another question. This year we're hosting quite a large party, but that's including quite a few different personalities. We certainly have the typical extroverts, but we've also got quite a few introverts and people who are a bit more thoughtful and quiet. How do I make sure everyone feels welcome this Christmas? Well, that's a very thoughtful question someone's already asked. Very nice.
Yeah, I think that's fab. I think immediately thinking about the stuff we spoke to Alex about. So Alex O'Rourke, I think, was our second guest, yeah, and such a interesting guest, someone that had thought a lot about the dynamics between people. I mean, in her work as a coach, but also on herself. She kind of spent a long time thinking about her personal brand and who she is and how it kind of what the way she turns up in the workplace and her special powers and all of that sort of stuff. Things that I think everybody could kind of take note of. But I think especially stuff that the most relevant stuff for this particular question is the stuff I think Alex was talking about DISC. And I'm not suggesting everybody now goes and encourages all of their Christmas guests to go away and take their DISC.
I would. I think it would be great, but no, they won't. But thinking about what colours people say, are they a dynamic kind of leader character? Are they a thoughtful kind of data-led, more meditative person? Are they the one that wants everyone to get along and very convivial? Are they the kind of extrovert, loud, bubbly ideas person? What are all those interactions, and where can be the points of really lovely interaction and where can be the points of some tension, especially when the turkey is a bit burnt or everyone's had a glass too many?
Speak for yourself. Yeah, I think thinking about the different parts of the day and the different energies that come to the fore, I think is really, something that Alex would say here.
So if you had an ideal scenario, you'd have the analytical blues doing the day plan and probably the cooking timings.
Yeah,
you'd have
sorting out the shopping list.
Yes, you'd have a red overseeing the cooking, the direct leader, but you keep them in another room.
Yeah, you need that turkey to hit the table at the right time. And you need someone driving that, absolutely.
You've got the yellows being very outre and coming up with all the party ideas.
Yeah.
And then you've got the greens just making sure everyone gets along and everyone's got what they need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
Sounds ideal.
I am very high yellow, which means very, very high energy, full of ideas, full of enthusiasm. Chris, on the other hand, is very blue, and he's very in the detail. He's very organised. He likes to know exactly what is happening and when. We complement each other because I'm very high energy and have lots of ideas, and whereas he makes sure all those ideas happen and are executed brilliantly. But what that can also mean is that if I'm getting too yellow, he finds it very frustrating, or if he's trying to drag me too far into the detail, I find that very frustrating. So, when we do find each other bristling or prickling, which isn't very often, but when we do, it can normally be explained using our DISC profiles and understanding if we're leaning into one of our behavioural preferences too much or too little, and that's rubbing each other up the wrong way.
The other thing to be aware of at Christmas is what the worst side of your profile is. And that was something that Alex encouraged us to reflect on when we were doing our training with her. what can be sort of really lively and fun can become quite quickly slightly manic and shrill. I've learnt some people have that. I don't know who. And equally, what some people might consider, just being a leader and being on top of things could become sort of bossy and domineering. So just being aware of yourself and aware of your interactions with others is probably the best way to navigate out of those Christmas tensions.
Definitely.
Lovely. Okay. So now we have a lovely question from friend of the Forge, Jen White at Halion. Not speaking in her capacity as an innovation director, but purely from an observation about Christmas. How do you go about merging different cultures and traditions at Christmas when you come from different places? This came from a chat from my friends in Austria who celebrate the 24th Austrian style and then the 25th British style. Oh, lovely question.
Yeah, really lovely. And I think that's becoming increasingly important, isn't it? The merging of cultures around Christmas. Personally, I grew up in Singapore, and so coming back from a hot country to a cold country, we've brought some of that kind of hot country stuff with us. If it were up to me, I'd have a barbecue on Christmas Day.
I know, that's so nice, right?
But yeah, I think immediately again, jumping to what Jane said, innovation maestro. She said that the best innovations happen when you're really mashing things up. So you're taking the best of one category, or you're going to a category which is delivering one thing but can't quite deliver another, and you go to a category which is delivering another thing that can't. Bringing them together, you end up with something which is kind of like the best of both, and it can be quite interesting. And she gave us the example of Huel at the time, the fact that Huel had gone from nutrition into like pot noodles ultimately. It meant that they could bring a kind of nutritional story with them. Where the pot noodles of the world might struggle to sort of talk about nutrition because they hadn't got that as their kind of brand story. So I think those mashups, so if your colleague with an Austrian friend and a British friend that are kind of bringing their two things together, I think that some really special things can be created when you kind of bring the two together.
Yeah, well, I think for me that's what innovation is actually, is mashups, especially when you're creating a new brand. I mean, to just be building iteratively on existing stuff is not the big step change way forward. So obviously there's all different levels of innovation, but something like that, to create new space, new momentum, you need to basically combine slightly opposing forces.
Do you have any mashup traditions already? I mean, I know you'd like a barbecue, but what do you actually have as a taste of Singapore on Christmas Day?
Well, I just had my Christmas party, and it's become a tradition every year for me to cook a Christmas rendang.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I do a scratch rendang. I use Rick Stein's Far Eastern Odyssey book.
Oh, yummy.
And it's the Indonesian rendang style rather than the Malaysian rendang style. So the slightly thicker sauce. Mm-hmm. And it is incredible. And it's become a tradition, the traditional Christmas rendang at the Christmas party.
That's lovely. It's the kind of Indonesian version of turkey curry, my favourite.
Yeah. Turkey curry is another good one as well, actually, after Christmas.
Yeah. Absolutely.
How about you? Have you got any mashups? I mean, you spent some time in Singapore as well.
We have, although I did come back for absolutely every Christmas. But the reason was it's my sister's birthday on Christmas Day.
Wow.
So we have to squeeze in quite a lot of presents and, more importantly, quite a lot of food. And there's often quite a lot of pressure on that. So I love the fact that I get to eat birthday cake for dessert on Christmas Day.
Wow.
That's great.
That's cool, isn't it? That's a fun tradition.
That's really good. There are still a few diehards who are saying, no, I'll have my Christmas pudding and then birthday cake, but that's a bridge too far for me.
So here's a good one. So I'm going to the in-laws for Christmas for the first time, and I'm worried it won't be the same. What can I do?
Interesting. Okay. Well, that's something that we all have to face sooner or later. And it's obviously a time of a lot of kind of introspection and melancholy, and a lot of time we associate with doing things in a certain way. So I think it's a completely valid question, and one a lot of people can relate to. And I think it's one where actually Nick Graham's thoughts on what's timely and what's timeless are more relevant than ever. So he worked with a lot of iconic brands, and he really thought about when we say, oh, this is the kind of what the brand stands for, do we actually mean it's those specific things?
What I think they did really nicely again is that they went back to that sort of like, let's not be ashamed of the sort of timeless spirit of this brand and the nostalgia of this brand, but how do we carefully reinvent that and use that to sort of express the sort of bold spirit of the brand in a way that also feels sort of more contemporary as well. So I think for most big brands, Pepsi, Cadbury, finding that right balance between leveraging nostalgia but not being old-fashioned, that's, and again, between being timeless and timely, to me, that's always that balancing act that they need to manage.
I think what we can relate back to with Nick's comments there is, let's actually think about the roots of what Christmas is all about in terms of how you want to feel. Like, what are some of the elements that you associate with Christmas and why are they meaningful? It can't be exact replica of the Christmases you've had before, but what are the things that make you feel like that you're evoking that spirit of what Christmas means for you? And so maybe there's some elements which are about bringing a particular tradition with you. Maybe it's a particular type of meal or something that you do and you can introduce that. But maybe it's also thinking, well, I really love feeling like a spirit of togetherness, so I want to make sure I have time for a FaceTime call, or I really love having music as part of it, so maybe we can all go carol singing. It doesn't have to be exactly the same thing. How can you actually capture the essence of what you want, and what are you going to be, willing to sort of evolve in the future?
Yeah, I think that's a really good thought, Laura. Very, very prescient.
What are some of the traditions you would never lose?
Oh, that's a good one. We've been quite innovative with Christmas over the years. I mean, I guess growing up in Singapore meant that, like, sometimes you'd be at friends' like apartments rather than houses. I mean, that feels innovative anyway. You'd be in kind of condominium blocks with swimming pools. Pool. Yeah. Barbecues. We've done dinner out. At one point, my parents were sick of the kind of rush on Christmas Day, so they moved Christmas dinner to Christmas Eve, and we had spag bol on Christmas Day. One year we had a major power cut in the southeast of England. I don't know if you remember it. I think it might have been around like 2012 or 13.
Okay.
But loads of homes were out of power for the whole kind of Christmas break. And because our central heating system obviously required power to turn on, we had no heating either. And actually, we had to cook our Christmas dinner on a barbecue outside. We had a pot on...
Was this like 1861?
No, this was like 2013. Okay. But it was one of the best Christmases ever because there was no internet, there was no TV, there was no like heating. There was like it was really at the time we hated it. We all now reflect on it as actually being quite fun at the time, and it all felt we had to just literally make our own fun with things like charades and the hat game.
I love the hat game. It's a really good game. So I would say the tradition that I insist on keeping, which makes me sound like a really unfun mum. I'm such a fun mum, I promise. But when we open stockings, I make sure the kids take turns in opening them. So like they don't just open them all at once. It's like one's turn, the other's turn, one's turn, the other's turn. And then I make them make a display of the presents, including like the ones they like most at the front. And the reason is I used to have to do that for my grandma when she came over. And I actually really liked making displays because I was like quite crafty and stuff. But also it genuinely made you appreciate the gifts twice because you were like, oh yeah, I forgot. I got overexcited and I didn't notice this thing, but it's actually really cool. And then, showing it to the grandparents and kind of talking through how all the stuff worked, you kind of felt a little bit important. And it was just a really nice like sharing moment. So I've tried really hard to get the kids to maintain that tradition. It is a process, especially with the younger one. But yeah, I think it's a good habit to keep.
That's really nice.
Okay, we're going to, on that note, leave you with a playlist that has been curated by Simon and is extremely excellent. So if you look at the links in the podcast, you will find a selection of great songs to create the vibe. And I'm going to ask you, Adam, what your favourite Christmas song is.
Oh, so I've got three.
Okay.
I love Carol of the Bells from Home Alone. I love it. It's so atmospheric. It immediately makes me feel like Christmas. Number two, of course, I love The Fairy Tale of New York. That's just a great duet and really fun to sing in karaoke when you're really drunk. But number three, I think it came out last year and I love it. It's Sia's Snowman.
Oh yeah, my snowman and me. Yeah, that's a good one. Oh, that is really nice. I am so pleased you said Carol of the Bells, because my best friend from school is a really good choral singer, and she has an amazing version of Carol of the Bells, which I'm also going to put in the show link. It is really special. It's really, really good. Enjoy that, guys. And then the other ones I would choose is, I always think it's a balance of being a bit cheesy, but also being able to bear hearing it more than once, because it will inevitably be played more than once in the hour. So you kind of got to think hard about that. And I would say my second choice, therefore, would be Santa Claus is Coming to Town, sung by Bruce Springsteen. That is a really good version of a Christmas classic, and he actually makes it sound aspirational and cool to wait for Santa.
I don't think I actually know the one you're talking about.
Oh, it's really good.
I'll have to check out the show notes.
And then the final one is going to make me sound like such a loser that I remember this, but there was a movie called About a Boy, which had a really good soundtrack, all written by a badly drawn boy. And one of the songs is called Donner and Blitzen, and it's a properly Christmassy song, but it doesn't really get played at all. And it's really got that magic of Christmas vibe. It's sort of sparkly, but it's something that you don't hear outside of December, but probably don't hear that much in December either. So I highly advocate for that one.
Well, anyway, that's all we've got time for this year. Very, very excited about next year. We've got some big plans.
So I think what this has proven is that, contrary to popular belief, strategy can actually get you out of quite a lot of problems in the practical, real-life world.
Totally.
And I'm enormously grateful to all of our guests who have given us not only great advice for our jobs, but have potentially saved Christmas as well.
Cannot agree more.
We will be thinking about plans for next year while we enjoy our mulled wine and don't step out of our PJs. If you are a senior insights or marketing professional and have enjoyed the podcast and would like to be a guest, please slide into our DMs. We would love to hear from you in our 2025 plans.
So yeah, we're going to put our feet up, as Laura says, and we'll be back with a bang on the 7th with a very special guest.
Happy Christmas!
Thanks for listening. If you'd love to hear more from marketers, entrepreneurs, and business leaders about how to use the art of persuasion to drive your business forward, then make sure you're following the podcast in your favourite podcast app. And just a last ask from us. This is a new podcast, and we'd love it if you could be persuaded to help us spread the word by telling somebody else about it, leaving us a review, or even better, sharing an episode on social media. Search The Forge on LinkedIn.